Okay, hello to everyone. It's great to be here. Very excited to be doing our second um, IndieFlow webinar. So this is a series of webinars that we would like to do to give tools for independent artists and give you a framework with building your strategies. So this can be also useful for beginning artists, emerging artists, even medium-sized artists, and so on. So just going over like different topics and making it accessible and relevant for all of you. So thank you all for joining. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and let us know like what you do. Are you an artist, a manager? So don't be shy and feel free to let us know, let everyone know. And I think I won't take too much more of our time with intros, and I will bring in Amishar, who is, I should say, also an entrepreneur, also a consultant for artists. He has been running several campaigns, crowdfunding campaigns, a specifically successful one that he has done for the Portnoy Brothers in 2019, that he raised $30K dollars for them in pre-sales, which he'll also be telling us about in this webinar. Mishar has previously worked with Sofar Sounds and the Bad Years Musical Workshop in NYC, and is a music consultant. So if you have any consultations you'd like to do, Mishar is definitely an address for you. So I would like to invite him to the screen. 1 second, please. So Amishar Frutkoff, you should be receiving an invitation.
Hey there.
There you go. How's it going, Amishar?
Good, good. How's it going, Omar?
Very good, very good. Very good to see you and hear you. We've been discussing a lot in the last week about your different experience and like all the cool things you've been doing with bands, such as the Portnoy Brothers, but also other bands and artists, bands and brands. It's kind of the same these days, I guess.
That's a whole nother webinar.
Yes, maybe for later in a couple more months. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to really thank you for this opportunity to speak to us.
Thanks.
And to.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So I'll give you the stage, and yeah, maybe like introduce yourself a little bit. I've tried a little bit. Maybe you want to add some more stuff, and then we can start.
You did a pretty good job. So Amishar, I've been working for the past 5 or 6 years with a variety of different artists and brands, bands, and a few startups, everything kind of in the music space. So I've kind of dived into a variety of different topics. And one of the more exciting ones that I recently had the pleasure of being a part of was the Portnoy Brothers. I managed their campaign, did a little bit of management for them after that as well. And, we actually had a very successful campaign. So it's kind of great to share some insights from that and what we learned and the do's and don'ts and, help other artists raise the money, raise awareness, get their music out there. So it's great to be here today to cover that.
Great. Yeah, really looking forward to that. And maybe like I think the biggest questions in kind of planning a crowdfunding campaign is like, is it suitable for me? Is it something that it's right for me in the specific time that I'm in my career? What are like the main different criteria that an artist should be taking under consideration before doing such a campaign?
Yeah. I think artists need to be very honest with themselves. They have to see, where what stage they are at with their music. So to get anybody engaged and interested in your music needs to be in a good place, production wise, message wise, like just everything that you're doing in terms of your music really needs to be solid before you can even talk about anything else, whether it's the PR and that Andrew talked about last week and 2 weeks ago, and crowdfunding. So that's one thing I would look at, and another thing is really your fan base, your engagement. Like, have you sold music before? Have you sold albums, merch? What kind? How many fans do you have? What's your following on Facebook? Are they following? Are they interacting with your content? I mean, there's probably a very, very long list of things that you should be asking yourself, but I think one question leads to another when you start kind of seeing where you're at and putting a mirror in front of the work you're doing. I would definitely say, if you have the same 20 people coming to your shows, you might not be ready for a crowdfunding campaign. Just because those 20 people who are invested in you and your music are the same 20 people who are probably, going to invest in your crowdfunding campaign, and maybe not, right? Maybe not all of them can or will. And so having 20 people, for example, is definitely not enough. But it's something to work from, right? You have those same 20 people. How can you engage those 20 people to bring each one of them another 20 people, so that you start having more of a following online, and at your shows, try out selling, one piece of, merch or some of your music or a single, or giving stuff away. See how people are interacting with your music. And then you'll eventually be at a stage where you can say, okay, I have a significant following. I think that maybe 70% of the people who are following me will be able to, or will want to invest $10 or more in my music.
Is that a more or less an actual number, like around 70%? Is it realistic to?
I would say it's about 70%. I don't have the exact percentage number, but it's always assumed that it's going to be less than the amount of people who are actually engaging. I mean, you see that just on social media, right? Like, you can have 8,000 followers or 10,000 followers, and a fraction of that are actually engaging with your content. And then, you put out one awesome video, and then, you kind of see that uptick, right? So when you do good things, you get rewarded for them. And so it's kind of being very real in terms of your fan base, your music, and some of the other connections that you've made within the industry. A little bit of PR, marketing people, friends and family, your close network of people who want to support you, want you to succeed, want to invest in your next phase in your career. That once you have a solid list of all of those people, and I won't give out a number because it's very arbitrary. Like, if you can go through that list and say, okay, yeah, I think that a significant amount of people are going to contribute, then I think you're ready. But don't assume that you'll just, put the Kickstarter campaign out, or whatever platform. We'll talk about that a little later, but like, put that campaign out there and people will just kind of flock to it. You might get a few new people interested in your music, but the majority of people who are going to support you and get you over that finish line are going to be people that you've already have a relationship with. So that is kind of really important to remember before you even jump into it.
Yeah, I like that point that you were talking about. Like, doing a crowdfunding campaign also brings a lot of awareness and focus towards your band. So it doesn't really like, there's also a side effect. Like, even if it's not a direct effect of people buying our music and sponsoring us, it also does a lot of hype and buzz, which is always good for bands. It's always an excuse to start talking about that. But maybe that's like a bit later within this conversation. Maybe like let's start about how you even start with planning a campaign this size.
So I think one of the things you need to figure out is, and before I even answer that question, I actually wanted to say that it's really important. If you're a musician or if you know musicians, we're all familiar with the, the begging musician, right? We've all had that message that was sent.
Check out my new single.
Check out my new single, or like, check out, I'm like raising money, crowdfunding.
I've done that a bunch of times.
Like send, and at a certain point, like, especially if you know a lot of musicians, I think musicians can really feel this, because you get overload, right? You're like, I don't want to be one of those people who are, spamming everyone with come support my music and like get on this ride, whatever. Like, I don't want to be that. So first of all, there's a place and time, and a certain amount of that is okay, and is part of what we're doing. But I think a really good way to shift the conversation and kind of change that narrative a little bit is, don't call it a crowdfunding campaign, right? Don't say, hey, I've started this crowdfunding campaign, come support me, it's less about people supporting you. Of course it's about people supporting you, but I'm saying in the way we're speaking about it, it's less about the support, and it's more about, hey, come invest in my music. You've been a part of my journey so far. You've been to my shows, you've seen my stuff online, you've liked some of my music, we've had a conversation about me, whatever. Each interaction is different, but the bigger call is, you're saying, hey guys, this is an invitation to come and invest in something that I think you guys are interested in investing in. It's investing in me as the artist, and it's investing in my music. So, maybe call it a pre-sale campaign, right? Instead of a crowdfunding campaign, right? Maybe it's, hey, I've been working on this album, or I've been working on, depends where the album is at, but I have this concept for a new album, or I've been recording this album for so long. How can I get people to join the pre-sale, right? Come and join, come in and invest in it.
Yeah, it also sounds a bit more exclusive.
Right.
Pre-sale.
And you're getting people, the pre-sale campaign also gets people to partake in a different way, right? They're getting exclusive, items. They're joining in a different way. So it's not just like, hey, I'm giving you money and leaving. By the way, there will be people who will just want to give you $10, $20, $50, $100, and like call them when you're done, right? And that's okay. We can respect all the different types of fan relationships, but many people will want, will want some sort of return on investment. They'll want to hear what you've been up to. How is their contribution, how is them investing in you and your music going to take you as a musician to that next stage? So the narrative and the way you talk about the campaign is very important, right? It's all or nothing, right? It's an all or nothing campaign. This is it should be the biggest moment of my career so far. After this campaign, after I've raised X amount of money, and we'll talk about how to decide that in a minute, but after I've raised, let's say $10,000, I'm going to be able to ABC, right? So you're bringing people in to get excited for you about how this is going to be this is a huge investment and a big step forward. Instead of saying, hey, it just sounds different, right?
Yeah. So like, yeah. Less of a begging approach, more of a like join the process. This is going to be fun and it's going to be exciting, and you're welcome to join us. Exactly. So like there are many factors in crowdfunding. Like even just starting to think about it, it's very confusing. Like there are a lot of elements that you need to take under consideration. Budget, planning, what your perks are, make those perks like also relevant to your story and who you are as an artist, and kind of like you've been speaking about a lot about pre-sale, which goes back maybe to perks. Like it's kind of maybe the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe like, how does an artist start, like by mapping out all of the different things they need to cover, and how do they move forward with executing these efforts?
Great question. It all really boils down to research, right? If you've answered all those questions, you're like, okay, I'm ready to go. This is what I'm going to do. I need to crowdfund. I need to raise the money. I need to raise awareness about the projects I'm doing. All is said and done. And then you want to get people behind it. You need to research. So just like, go on to the different platforms, see how people are talking about their music. It's enough to go to Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Artist Share, for example, just to name a few, Patreon maybe. You can go to a bunch of these different platforms, write music or music album in the search, see what's trending right now, see what people are doing. See how much they're raising, how successful they are. If they look like they're a relatively successful campaign, or they've already reached and exceeded their goal, see what look at their product offering, and look at the product offerings of the campaigns that are failing. Like, try and figure out what's good and what's not good, and think about. And then after you've determined that, also try and determine that based on your fans. Will these products work for my fan? Do my fans want to buy a digital download? Maybe, maybe not. Do I give them a digital download regardless of what they're getting in return?
But how do you know these things in advance?
You don't, right? So I think that it's important before you pitch that to, we were talking before about like honing into being real with yourself, putting that mirror up. Part of that process is also just figuring out your brand, making sure that your brand is clear, that your messaging is clear. And part of figuring out that your brand is clear and that your messaging is clear is, figuring out your fan base and looking online to see who they are. And you can do that. People have spoken about this, a tremendous amount of information online about how to map out your fans and map out your, or followers on Facebook in general. Facebook, social media, email list, all of that. You can send out, Houston Morgan just wrote about Chartmetric and ToneDen to gather that info. That's a great call. There are tools online that allow you to gauge that and figure out who your fans are, what they're listening to other than your music, what their interests are. And you do that as part of your brand in general. And, once you've figured that out, then you can start thinking, you can also communicate with them, right? That's also a way that we don't do often, but it's just like asking questions like, hey, what do you guys think of this? Or what do you think of that? Do you like this color? Do you like this logo? Do you like, if we did a vinyl, like, would you guys want this? Or,
maybe take like a focus group of like maybe 30, 40 people. Yeah.
And just like honing in, like, get that core base, try and figure out who those people are and what they like. And some of it is just like teasing a little bit. It's like saying, hey, look at this like really cool design for a shirt or a hoodie or whatever. And seeing how people react to it. And like,
it's not like you don't have to be like direct with it and just ask the question as it is. Think of alternative ways to kind of understand what attracts users, because your fan base won't necessarily know to tell you what they like or not like.
Right.
Like, you can ask them a question and they say, yeah, that sounds nice. But like, it's not a natural reaction as opposed to if you would upload a cover or a few options and ask like, what would you prefer to get, and give a few examples,
right?
Then you see like the natural reaction.
Right. And I think one of the things that we did when I was working with the Portnoy Brothers is we literally, we print, I think they printed it out because they really wanted to see it in front of them, but you can like literally take all of your email list and like see who those people are and start mapping them out in terms of where that your email list hopefully is already organized in terms of where they joined and etc. But if it isn't, organize that. But one of the things that we did was we mapped out all of those people, and we started like trying to figure out who of these people is engaging a ton with our stuff. Can we call them super fans? And we kind of started targeting them a little bit with stuff and asking them. And at a certain point, we just outright asked them, "Hey, do you want to be super fans?" And they're like, "What does that mean?" And it's like, well, we'll give you, backstage access to the ABC, or we'll ask for your help in sharing information. The people who like and want to invest in your music are going to be your biggest advocates, right? So if you can get a team of 20 people who are just fans on Facebook or love your music, and you give them something extra for spreading the word, that's very powerful. So again, just mapping out your audience, mapping out the people, using the various tools online. Chartmetric and ToneDen, again, are good. There's several others as well, and you can use Google Analytics and Facebook. Facebook has some interesting tools as well to use, Facebook Business Manager, and just really get an understanding of who your fans are. So after you have figured out your fans, you want to start figuring out how much money you're going to need. So budgeting is really important. You may have a small budget production. So the goal will be a goal that will cover your entire recording production and marketing and whatever, but that's usually not the case. The case is usually that, the crowdfunding, the pre-sale campaign is going to cover, a percentage of what your expenses are going to be. And that's important. So it's kind of, I think if you do a big picture budget of everything you're going to need, mapping that out and then saying, okay, well, I'm going to be able to, source this money from here, and this will be a personal investment, and this will, whatever. And you figure out how you're going to pay for all of those things, and then say, okay, I need to raise, $10,000, $20,000. And you can figure out if that makes sense in terms of the amount of people who are going to contribute.
So just to, I think that's a very important point, what you just said right now. And also just to put it like into perspective, then this whole campaign should have incorporated also your recording, also your sessions, your production, mixing, but then also the marketing. And everything needs to like come out of there. Fulfillment. Shipping, and all of those types, if you're doing that. Yeah. So like, I think a lot of us think about, okay, I'm going to record my next album and I'm going to need for this $10,000, for example. But then like the marketing and the fulfillment, the shipping and so on can cost 2 times more. So like, what are the main things that you would take into consideration if like to put into like 5 or 6 top things when I'm thinking about planning my budget?
So you said some of them already, and recording budget, mix, design, right? Design is going to, it depends who you're working with in terms of design, but sometimes it just includes the design of the actual cover for the album, or all of the inserts, etc. for if you're doing like a vinyl release. But your design, you might want to work with a designer or get assets from your designer to inform everything else as well, right? Like any printouts that you're going to need for clothing items, or any sort of other merch, or just for your digital presence, right? You kind of want that to be all cohesive. So depending on if and how and of your campaign, design is going to take a cut into budgeting. So that's something to look at. Products. You want to try and offer products that don't cost you too much to create and make,
but are still cool.
But are still cool and still interesting and can still, get people behind. That being said, people do want physical items, right? People do want to support you and get something physical back. So it is important to figure out what those things are. And it is important for those to be high quality, good, real products, and not some, crummy shirt that falls apart and whatever. You want your fans to feel loved after they've invested in you. So it is important to get those things, but just consider that does affect price. And then shipping and handling and all of that. I mean, so many artists forget that they're going to need to ship these items, and that doesn't just take time, which is something that you might want to budget for in terms financially, but it also takes, you need to buy boxes, and you need to buy packaging material, and you need just like tape. Like all of these things add up. It's like little items that add up, and you're like, whatever, it's just like a box. And it's like, but like if you're buying 100 boxes to send out 100 vinyls, you're going to end up spending a few $100s on that, right? Because you want to package it well so that it doesn't break. Like it gets expensive. And then shipping in the United States is expensive. Shipping to Europe is expensive, or to Japan, or wherever people might be buying your music. Shipping adds up. I think we spent several $1,000s on shipping at the end.
Wow.
So it's just like, keep that in mind. And yeah, you can add that as something when you at checkout, that certain items have some shipping attached to it. But that's a difficult thing, because Amazon kind of got us all used to free shipping and the idea that shipping doesn't cost anything. So when people suddenly see an extra cost of shipping attached to, this investment they just made of $20 or more, it throws people off. So it's really, it's important to just have that budget in, and think that out before you think of an actual number that you're going to want to get from people.
I just want,
yeah.
Sorry to cut you. I just added these main pointers on the chat, and guys, feel free, guys and gals, to also engage with questions, which we'll be answering every now and then. So if you have any questions, you have a little questions and answers here on the bottom, which I see Eric Red has already sent a question. Maybe we can answer that now, or if you want, Mishar, I know I stopped you in the middle, so.
Yeah. I just want to add one thing, and I'll answer Eric as well. Another thing to consider when it comes to budgeting is taxes and fees. The platforms, and in a minute, we'll also talk about which platform to use. Spoiler alert, I'm not going to tell you which one to use, but I will talk a bit about how to choose a platform. But all the platforms, and even if you're not using a platform, any sort of processing fee in terms of credit cards, you're going to pay some fee. And that comes off of the bottom line. So that's important to remember, is the fees, the processing fees, and taxes. The platforms have to report to the IRS if you're making, I think the number is $10,000. So if the number, if what you've made in profit is more than $10,000, then they will report that to the IRS, and that's something to take into consideration in terms of in terms of your end of year numbers as well. What was Eric?
And is that so? That's not like a immediate expense that goes off of your budget, that you take it under consideration at the end of the year, right?
Yeah, but it's something that you might want to account for, right? Like you might want to put aside some money for whatever taxes might be, or consult with an accountant who can help you with that. But that also might affect what number you're asking for. If you don't want to deal with that, after consulting with an accountant, again, I don't want to just say something that I don't know for sure myself, but after consulting with an accountant, you might decide that you want, less than $10,000, because that's enough to do whatever, and cover certain expenses and other expenses we figure out otherwise. In terms of how to ship, there are a variety of services. Most of the platforms, unfortunately, don't provide. And I think we'll dive into that a little bit more in a minute. But one company that I use that I really enjoyed using and working with them was Shippo. They make it very easy to print out, to kind of weigh your items and measure and whatever, and then very easily you can create shipping labels and send them out. Another thing that we did for a while was drop shipping, and we'll get to that I think later. But those are some of the ways to get your stuff out as well.
Nice. So it's goshippo.com.
Yeah.
Just looking at their website. I'll add it here. Cool. Thanks, Eric, for your question. Yeah, maybe let's jump into kind of, okay, so that was the budget part and also part of the planning. There is also a lot about like how you kind of brand yourself around this campaign, or I don't want to, I think there's like endless amount of information we can talk about branding, and I don't want to take this conversation down that road, but maybe like a little bit about the planning. Okay, so I have figured out my budget. I have figured out my products and my offerings. What next?
So what's next? Scheduling. I'm trying to think like what to talk about when, but scheduling would probably be my next thing, right? Is like as much as possible, and there's always going to be hiccups along the way. You want to know what you're preparing for. A campaign is usually going to be 30 to 60 days. I would encourage people to go on the lower end, 30, maybe 45 days. And the reason being that it's very hard to keep momentum going for so long. I would encourage people to do less time. That being said, less time means you might have less time to get those bigger donations, those bigger investments in your music. Again, you have to figure it out based on your fans and based on the reality of your release. But the scheduling of every single day, every single week needs to be laid out. So everything is planned in terms of the messaging that you're sending out to people on different channels, if it's Facebook and Instagram and emailing list, and different shows that you might have. You might release a single in that time to promote and talk about your campaign as well, and you might do a single release show, right, so that you can plug your campaign as well. And those things really help. I mean, I think we noticed after every single show that we did throughout the campaign period, we saw an uptick of people supporting on the back end. So having a show, having all of that scheduled out is important, because then you can also relate to it. You can say, okay, we're going to be in New York on this day, and we're going to be in LA on that day, and we're releasing our single, and you can create a lot of extra buzz, and you keep sending everybody to the campaign for that buzz. So that's the scheduling, and then once you've figured out scheduling, we need to figure out the platform, right? So let's talk a little bit about that. I think there's two options in terms of platforms. You can either go with one of the more traditional platforms. So that's, the big ones are Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Artist Share was one that kind of preceded all of them, but is a little outdated in terms of their website. So I don't know anyone who's used Artist Share, so I don't know too much about it. Patreon is one that's picking up, but their model is a little different, and hopefully we'll have time to talk about that. But they're an option, and then so that would be the first option, and the second option is to do it on your own, is leverage your website, create a store online, maybe using Shopify or Big Cartel as a storefront. And
don't give commission to the different services.
You're not giving commission to those services. You're paying the processing fee for credit cards, but you're keeping it in house. You've got everyone's emails. You have people's you have your fans.
That sounds like a huge operation. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure that out.
It is huge, but I think that there are tools out there to make it easy, and we didn't end up using this. When I was working with the Portnoy Brothers, they decided to go with Indiegogo. And the reason they went with Indiegogo is because they had already run a crowdfunding campaign in the past and they were successful there. And so when people wrote their name in Indiegogo, 2 campaigns popped up and 2 successful campaigns popped up, eventually pop up. So it kind of created some consistency, and that was important for them as well. And they knew that their fans were already familiar with Indiegogo. So they ended up using it.
That's also very important to send people to a familiar page and not to your website, and so they don't really understand or they don't know it.
Right.
So that stamp of credibility, oh yeah, I know that brand. Right. By the way, Houston Morgan again saying about Bandzoogle, thank you for that recommendation.
Oh, I didn't know about that. That's great.
Thank you. I didn't know either. I knew that they had I think a payment portal set up. That's very interesting. And guys, if you have also more recommendations of different services, feel free to fill us in the chat and tell a sentence or 2 about your experience. But yeah, sorry again, Amishar.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I didn't know Bandzoogle had that. That's a great add-on. The one reason I'm totally behind the going with the known platforms, for the reasons that we already stated. The one thing that I kind of found when using them is that they're not built as well for the needs of a musician. There was a time when Pledge Music was our the go-to, and that went under, unfortunately, and so other music platforms kind of popped up to take that place. So Bandzoogle is a good option. They do pride themselves in creating a website and the whole platform that's really geared to promoting musicians. And Patreon is kind of a little more geared to musicians, but Patreon is not necessarily campaign oriented. It's more ongoing subscription based. But of course you could manage a campaign and decide that your subscription is for a period of time. So all of these are valid options. But I would encourage people who might feel a little more comfortable with technology and platforms and all that stuff. I would encourage you to look into doing it yourself. A really interesting combination that I would look into is using, I like Big Cartel because they do allow you to do a lot of things. You can have, I think, 1 or 2 items for free even on their store before having to pay for any of their tiers. That being said, if you use Shopify, it's an incredibly powerful tool in terms of marketing and in terms of product offering and just making it look good. Shopify is a brand that people are familiar with. There is a plugin for Shopify called Single Music, and that allows you to sell digital and physical music through your Shopify store. And so that is a really powerful combination in terms of either setting up Single Music as a provider for your digital music later, if you used Indiegogo or Kickstarter or whatever, or pairing it with Shopify and putting that up on your store, on your website. So that's in terms of platforms. Cost.
I'm going to add these as well. So we said Shopify, and then we said Single Music, which is an add-on Shopify. And I remember you told me already why you mentioned these two, because it really helped you out with your campaign that you've done last year. And it was really interesting to hear the outcome of that, which I'm sure you'll get to in a moment. But let me just add it here so everyone will be able to see it. Okay, single music.
I'll go into another phase of planning pre-launch. Unless there are questions about platforms that I may have not answered yet, but feel free to ask them. I'll swing back to that. But I do want to talk about in the pre-planning, it's how you present yourself, and that connects to branding again, and it connects to your music again, and it connects, your music has to be good, and all of the things that we've already mentioned today. But the presentation is key. How, your video needs to look good. I don't know if it needs to be like super, super, super professional, because then that look, you want it to feel like you. If all of the videos before that you've been releasing look super professional and are like very tight in terms of their production and editing and whatever, then by all means. But I think that the idea here is to really just present what you're working on and why people should want to invest in this and join that, join the support and taking you to that next phase.
There's also a lot of charm in authenticity and like not being a huge production, because then maybe like kind of creates some sort of feeling that this guy doesn't need my money. He already has it sorted because he put $10,000 on a production.
Exactly. And that's not to say that like your music needs to be that the video needs to be like, like super amateur and you don't need to invest in it. On the contrary, you can, but like you can make a good video today with your iPhone and iMovie or whatever you're using. Like it's very simple to put these things together. If that's an area of expertise that is not yours, then I'm sure you can look out, ask your fans, ask your friends. People will want to help you put that together. And I think in the presentation, you want to think a lot about how you're presenting your music. Are you maybe one thing that I saw that was really cool is a video of someone just like playing like an interlude to their music, right? So it was just like on, him and a guitar playing an interlude and some like poetry or like his story in poetry, playing out, which was really neat to see. That was like, it was very inviting. The footage was inviting, the story was inviting, hearing the music, and it just felt really warm and nice. And I wanted to hear what he wanted to say. And then he ends up by saying like, come join me, invest in my album is now on pre-sale. And you find the best way to phrase those words that make sense for your fans. But that was one example that I saw. Others, share their story until that moment, right? Like everything they've done, like their career in 30 seconds. Which is also a cool and fun thing. If the music and the album is lighter, then go with the humor. If it's more somber and sad or uplifting, then go with that. But find a way to present what you're going to present about your music in a powerful way, and make that match everything else: your website, your social media, your product offering. The presentation is exciting and uplifting and funny and whatever's right. People will want to hear more.
Interesting. You talk a lot about the pre-sale, like maybe like we've been talking a lot about like the term pre-sale rather than crowdfunding, or kind of like the perspective, how to look at this tactic or like strategy. And I really liked the way that you look at it as a pre-sale, like kind of, okay, so this isn't like now we're not getting support from our fans. We're now about to do something big. We're about to launch something, a product, an album, whatever. and we're now doing like a special offer to whoever wants to order in advance will get 1, 2, 3. Right. So this is also one in terms of like the communication aspect, and it does something. And on the other hand, it also does something like algorithmic, which I assume also builds up to an opportunity to being added to charts or to playlists or whatever. On release day, you'll have like a bunch of supporters that the algorithm has probably counted and taken under account.
Yeah. One of the best kept secrets in the music industry is that pre-sales, if sold in the, using the right platforms, can count for chart consideration, Billboard and others. So I think some of the lower end numbers, and it depends on the week as well, depends how well artists in your category, musicians in your category are doing that week. So that there are other factors that come into play here. But album sales as low as 450 sales in pre-sales can count towards a chart mention. So this is where, when you're thinking about strategy and product offering, regardless of if people want a digital download or have a way to use digital download, I think this is a place where you give people a digital download regardless of what they buy, right? It doesn't cost you anything, or costs very little. I think single music takes like a couple cents per song that you deliver per track, but it makes a huge difference in terms of just what the impact of your campaign. Like, what a great story to tell when you're done, to be able to say, hey, thanks to your support and your investment, we not only raised the money that we want and gave you an awesome product and gave you the music and were able to perform in these places and did this thing, well, we also got a notable mention by Billboard, right?
Which is a true story, which is actually what happened to you guys. Which is
what happened to us. And the Portnoy Brothers were lucky that week in their chart, it wasn't the top 100 artists, it wasn't the top 200 albums or anything like that, but it was, Billboard has hundreds of charts, and any mention in any of them is great, right? Like they were in a chart with other artists that had a name, and people who are looking at those charts, will be like, oh, hey, who are these guys, right? Like, how did they get here? I haven't heard of them. And they'll go check.
That's an amazing hack. That's cool. Basically, from what like I'm gathering all the different things that you said here, what you've done is add, was it single music to your website?
Single music, yeah.
And that allowed them to download music. That allowed the fans to go to the website and download the music. Each download was actually counted as a pre-sale, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then during this time, like, because there were many pre-sales, doesn't matter for what reason, but it accumulated to around, like, I think you said 500?
I think it was a little more than 500, because I think they sold just under 500 physical albums in their campaign. And every single album also came with a digital album. Right? So they got basically each person bought 2 albums, essentially. And also every other product offering that we had always included a digital download, right? So we were saying, regardless of how you choose to support this project or get on board, you're going to get a digital download. So the least you could contribute and invest was $10, I think, and that was a digital download of the album. And then anything above that was the digital download plus something else. So it also helps in terms of giving value to other products. People will feel more inclined to get something and the digital download because they're getting it for less, right? That's like a way for them to get the digital download for free. But in doing that, you're also creating this effect where digital downloads are accumulating, and then on release week, you hit release and the charts read it as, hey, they released 400 downloads, or they released 500 or 1,000. And again, 1,000 downloads might be enough that week, and it might be too little that week. And it really depends on, again, what the success of other musicians that week.
Yeah, it shouldn't be like your main goal, but if it happens, then it's an amazing way to leverage your campaign and to like kind of use this momentum and buzz.
It's like
very cool.
So let's launch.
Let's jump into launching. Easy. Let's do it.
So what are the things that we should think about when we're launching? So, I mean, remember that for those 30 days, and again, I'm deciding that it's 30 days, but you should decide what's right for you. But for that time of the period of the campaign, you're going in campaign mode. You're full on. Everything that you are doing is this campaign. I think the Portnoy Brothers hardly ate and slept during that period of time. And neither did I, honestly, because it really is you gearing yourself to fully promote this campaign. It's calling everyone it's thinking of new ways and creating new interaction points. It's just embodying the campaign in everything you do. Everywhere you go, you're talking about the campaign. Anything that you post, you talk about the campaign, and you always put a link to your campaign. And don't worry about being annoying. This is your time, right? This is your time to be annoying. You're allowed to be annoying. Take it, embrace it, but also try and think of new ways not to be annoying, right? Like your marketing should inform that.
I think in that sense, just to add a little note, I think in that sense, the team is very important. Like don't do it alone, because otherwise it just can drive you insane, and you don't have that balance as well, or the other people to like do also the work for you, with you, and kind of like give you a reflection of what you're doing. So I think like doing this alone can really get lost in all of this.
It's you definitely want to have people that you can work with, whether you have a manager or you have other team members, or just people that that you can lean on and count on. Campaign it's difficult. Whether it's the phone calls and the rejections and the you're calling, just you want people to talk about your campaign, so you're getting it out there, and not everybody wants to, and that's fine. But having people to lean on and talk to while you're doing that is important. Having some mentorship, lean in to the people that are there for you. That is a very important take. And those are the people who will get you past the finish line. There's going to be some hard parts of this campaign. It might start off really great, or it might start off terribly, one or the other. Like either way, there's probably going to be a low in the campaign. And you need to find the people that give you the energy and the power to power through.
Did you experience any like dead ends where you felt in the middle of the campaign that, okay, what are we doing? People aren't buying, and just like re-strategized everything and took a different route?
Yeah. So I think it was maybe this was for us, it was the week before the end. And I remember this conversation very well. It was kind of a like, we're giving up moment. Wow. It was like how I think they were less than 50% to their goal. Wow. Just under 50% of their goal. And they were like, there's no way, if this is the amount of money that we've raised in 3 weeks, there's no way that we're going to get to the finish line and get more than whatever it was, 55% of funding, which was several thousand. I think their goal was $30,000. So, they made a significant amount of money. I think they were just under $15,000, which is
amazing.
Which is amazing. A lot of musicians would dream for that kind of funding for their album. But for them, in terms of their budgeting and the things that they needed to achieve after that, it was just short. And also, they wouldn't have got that money. It was an all or nothing campaign. And I think, we talked through all of this, and one of the things that we said was like, all right, we have to give it one last push. We have to be able to say that we did our best. If it wasn't an all or nothing campaign, even the psychology works on our fans, sure, but it also works on us, right? The people who are running the campaign, because if we were about to lose on $15,000 if we didn't get the other $15,000, so we had to do whatever we could to get that $15,000, and so it was doing a whole nother, mapping out who has contributed so far, and putting those, in an Excel sheet, just figuring out who's contributed from our fans, who hasn't, and try and get another $10 from each person. The simple math is that if you have 3,000 people giving $10, right, that's $30,000. But you don't necessarily have 3,000 fans.
Yeah.
They had, I think, 8,000 followers on Facebook. So their math was, if every person on Facebook gave them $1, they would have made it, right?
But in reality,
that was what they were missing, not what, but the reality was very different. So, they just had to follow up with all the people they knew. Some of the things that were really helpful, and I think it's worth thinking of this in your planning as well, is partnerships. And finding people who can, and scheduling this, instead of getting to a moment of a low where you're like, how are we going to raise this money? Is finding people who have money to invest and are willing to, help boost your campaign. So maybe, we can call them super donors or something like that, but people who are willing to maybe do like a match, or people who want to become like producers and get producer credit on your album. There's different ways to phrase and partner with these people. But it's really effective to say, hey guys, even if you've already contributed $10, we have for the next 48 hours someone who's willing to match your donation up to, match your support up to.
It incentivizes also all of the rest. So
because everyone wants you to get to the finish line. Like, people want you to succeed, right? So if they've already contributed and they don't want to contribute, they'll call their friend now and they'll say, hey, this band I follow is doing this thing, and they're, they have a match program right now, so I really want to help them out. When it's all or nothing and you do that type of promotion, it's cool. So it's difficult to find people who are willing to do a match program.
Maybe you can also just invent one and then like just use it as I don't know if that's like a legitimate thing to do, but
I mean,
you want to be transparent and honest with your fans, obviously. But let's say you find you have a rich uncle. I'm just throwing this out there, and like just using this as a strategy, because this is a very smart tactic. This is psychologically a way to also help incentivize, because I feel that a lot of like your fans, they want you to succeed, just like you said, but the gap between that and putting their hands in their pocket and pulling out their credit card, and they don't mind putting the $10, but if they have to actually do it, that's the barrier. And I'm not talking about like the whole rich uncle example as something like to deceive or something like that, but to use it to help leverage, again, everything you're talking about, a lot of interesting things that help leverage this whole machine and this whole energy that's running. So this is a very interesting way also to like just keep your other fans in the loop and have another subject and another topic to talk about.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's super important. Some bands have access to those patrons in their fan base or in their network, and others don't. And so it's important to use what you have. Something we didn't mention at the beginning when you're launching is you want to launch with excitement, right? You want to make a lot of noise. And so already you're asking your friends and family, who are your closest, biggest fans, to contribute, right? Because when you send it out and let the world know that you launched this campaign, you don't want it to be on $0, right? You don't want people to be like, well, who's this? $0, I'm not going to support it, right? Like you want it to have
another psychological effect, by the way.
It's another psychological.
Support the winner.
So if you have that rich uncle, you might need that rich uncle at the beginning to give you $500, right?
Maybe even pay him back afterwards, like after the campaign ends.
It could be, right? And so that's the kind of thing. It's like looking for those people who can somehow support. I think another thing that is worth looking at, and this also goes into like product offering, is partnering with like local vendors. I've seen some cool bands. I've seen some bands do some cool things with, their local coffee shop.
Nice.
And some of their products are like, curated coffee beans. And I get excited about that because I love coffee. But it's like a cool like design of like a coffee bean bag that's like, so-and-so like the branding of the band, and it's like a special edition roast. And you make a deal with the roaster that you'll take whatever percent, right? But it gets people excited and they want to join in and support because it's like another cool thing that they can get behind. It's their coffee shop they know from down the street, or bars or restaurants or organizations, nonprofits. Like, I mean, there's a lot of things in our network that we sometimes don't think about that we could partner with. Sometimes it doesn't need to be something that a product that you're offering, but it could be like a show that you're doing, right? You could say like, as part of my album, and this could be more of a like a charity kind of event, but you could say like, we're going to be doing this charity show at this place, and we, as if you like what we're doing or whatever, donate X amount so that we can cover the charity as well, and it's part of the whole thing, right? So that's another way to do that. And I think, as we said, that you're like, all of you goes into the campaign. I think everything that you're doing, like all of your transactions during the time of the campaign, can go through the campaign. So if you have a paid gig, or you teach, which by the way can be a product offering, but let's say you teach, all of those things, you can send the money through the campaign. That helps you get to those higher numbers. Because if you have a paid gig that's giving you $2,000, or you're teaching for $100, $200 per lesson, that's just money going into your campaign, and it helps the numbers go up, which helps the psychological effect, but it also just helps you get to that finish point, that all or nothing.
So let's say you're offering, you partnered with your local coffee place, and you have these coffee beans that are exclusive for your music brand, and you sell them. Then, like you're saying, the purchase happens like through the campaign itself. So the link to the page, whether it's Shopify page or Indiegogo or whatever, or Patreon, and the transaction needs to be done there in order to also centralize everything in one place and help the whole momentum again push forward.
Yeah.
A lot of times we set momentum here. I think that's like part of the.
It's a big thing to keep the momentum going, and that's why it's like living and breathing your campaign. And like, I think one of the things we had was like, somebody wanted to buy like 10 CDs. A friend wanted to buy like 10 CDs to give as a gift or something to, I think it was like around Christmas. I don't know. I don't remember exactly why this person wanted 10 CDs, but we could have just said, all right, yeah, pay, give us the money. But instead, we made sure to have that sale, that transaction be through the website, through that platform, whatever we were using. You have to take those things into account. We talked about budgeting earlier. Some of these things are things that you depend on if it's teaching and whatever. Like, some of that stuff is not really money that's going into the campaign. So it's important. That's why the budgeting is important. But it's, I think, even more important to have the success story. So especially if the numbers that you're going for are higher, on the higher end, $10,000 might be more achievable than $30,000. But if you're going for the $30,000, then, make sure that you're high up there and very, very close to succeeding at the end of the week.
That's a phenomenal number.
At the end of the month. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to say that we have like around 10 more minutes, more or less, give or take. So if anyone, I also want to leave some time for questions. So, so feel free, whoever's out there listening to us, to ask questions, and we will answer them. Amishar will answer them. And yeah, we were, I think, talking about, okay, we were talking the partnerships, right? This is like during the campaign itself. And yeah, I kind of lost what we were talking about, to be honest.
So no, we were in the momentum of the campaign and getting it through. I think, remember that the last week is like money time, right? And it's very likely that in the last week or two of your campaign, it's going to be hard. I can say that
you didn't tell how you finished.
How we finished. We made some phone calls. We made some phone calls. You know, we connected with some super donors who, you know, gave us a nice boost, and people seeing that boost got really excited. You know, then we talked about it. We came out with new videos, and we were like, hey, like a week ago, we didn't believe this was going to happen, but look, we're at 98%. Like, get us over the finish line. You know, this is all or nothing.
So what
we came out with new perks. We came out with new perks as well to give people an excuse to continue, being involved. Throughout the campaign, we hardly got to talk about this because, I mean, again, this is such a big topic. Yeah. But like throughout the campaign, when I said scheduling and having stuff happening, you know, we were giving premium content to the people who had already donated, right? So there was, you know, we were sending out emails to private links of, you know, behind the scenes, how we're designing
which you
stuff.
Planned in advance.
Yeah, a lot of it we planned in advance. Some of it was kind of on the go. We had an idea, or, you know, we realized that we needed an extra boost of content. So, you know, some of the stuff came up as we went, but most of it was planned in advance. You know, making sure that you're staying committed to your backers. There's ongoing outreach. So that's an important thing to maintain. Videos and music stuff and snippets and interviews and, you know, just like fun stuff that you give sneak peeks of it on your social media platform to get people in, but the like full experience is for people who have backed it.
I think that's a good idea in general also, like just to always record and document everything
you're doing. Yeah, absolutely. You know, you want to make sure that people who are backing you don't feel like cheated out at the end. Oh, like you launch it and then it's available on Spotify and everyone's like, well, why did, you know, what does this download matter? Yeah. So it's important to invest in your backers and think of ways to give them something extra. If it's an album with, you know, maybe they're getting an album that has an extra, you know, an exclusive album with extra tracks or behind the scenes, whatever. I mean, there's, if you go online and look at the different offerings that people are giving out, then you'll see stuff. One thing I would be careful or limit the amount that you do is handwritten lyrics and signatures. Remember that every signed album that you're selling, it's cool to sell a signed album, and maybe it should be a sign, you know, maybe all the albums should be signed, but remember that means in fulfillment time that you're going to be signing hopefully 500 plus albums, which can take a toll on your hand. So you know, be mindful of your product offering and how you're, you know, what it takes of you. If it's something you can do or want to do and think is important, then go ahead and do it. And be able and do that while also finding the things that, you know, where your fans feel like they're being taken care of. I thought a friend of mine sent me, I was trying to get a video of this before, pictures of it before we went on today, but a friend of mine sent me an album that he backed recently. And they sent this beautiful like package with foam, like really well packed, and you open it and it's like this beautiful graphic design. It's like, you know, he was telling me like I felt like it was worth it. You know, I got this nice book of an album, and those things are expensive to make. So, you know, you have to find the right vendors to get it for a good price. But that being said, like that person is now a fan forever, you know? So all of those things are things to take into account, like the product offering and making sure that's. So you took it over the finish line. You got your $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 that you were trying to raise. And what I've seen with a lot of artists is they disappear for like a year and a half.
Really? After the crowdfunding?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people managed to get to their. I remember someone that I supported, and it took like a year to get the album, which is okay. Sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes you're still in the middle of recording it and whatever. But I had no indication of when that was going to come, and there were no hard feelings. But I think as a fan, I would have felt better if I was, seeing what he was working on. Hey, I gave you $50 for your album. Like, what are you up to? Like, continue sharing. So, you finish you finish the launch, use that momentum, leverage that to continue your PR, your launch, your shows. Keep talking about it. Keep getting on podcasts. Keep getting interviews. Keep that going while you're making the album, while you're doing all of the dirty work and sending it out, and get that out. Shipping, we talked about how that can get expensive. I think we had a question from Eric who said, like, how much was it per album or product to ship? I don't remember the exact number because it really changed. It varied depending on where we were sending it out to, but I think it was between $10 to $15 for shipping per item. But I mean, I could value that at a lot higher because I also spent, hours packing the boxes and getting the materials and getting all of that stuff. So, it gets very, very pricey. So again, it's something to really think about. You might want to have a person who you hire as like a temp to help you ship and send out.
Eric, I think I had another question.
Yeah, any recommendation for vinyl manufacturers? We worked with Gold Rush, and they did a great job. I think they're based out in, I want to say Texas, but they were really great to work with. They gave us a fair price. So that's my personal recommendation. There's plenty others. I mean, vinyl is popping right now, so there's a lot of people pressing. Well, let's see if there's anything else that I didn't add. So GoShip was one way. Oh, I mentioned product drop shipping before. Through Shopify, we actually found a plugin that did drop shipping for some of our merch. Some people we kind of tested it before we sent it out. Some people got, the feedback we got was that the products were not great. So we didn't end up using it. But it's worth doing that research. And the idea of drop shipping really quickly is that you just don't keep any of the merchandise in your home.
How much time did you spend on the planning?
2-3 weeks.
Okay.
But you could, yeah.
It sounds like a year, a year of planning.
It sounds like a year.
It feels like a year.
It feels like a year.
So basically, sorry, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, the PR stuff. I'm going to reference Andrew's webinar that you guys did earlier this month. Yeah, because he gave some really good tips about, like, just the marketing and the PR aspect of it. Like, take what he said and then place it within the mindset of this campaign and do that. And whoever hasn't seen that, go ahead and watch that because it was great.
For sure. Maybe we can add a link here. Which, by the way, this is also going to be on our YouTube channel, and it's going to you'll be able to replay it. So no worries if you want to share it as well. Before like we wrap up, like in a couple of minutes, I have a question, if that's okay.
Go for it.
Should I type it or can I ask you directly?
You could type it.
I'm going to type it. Okay. So I'm going to ask you directly. So you've been talking a lot about the process of the campaign, which is very interesting. And obviously it's a lot of like guerrilla marketing, right? It's like a lot of picking up the phone, going to places, partnering with people, like a lot of field work. Yeah. Where we didn't talk a lot about marketing, but I'm sure like a portion of the budget went towards marketing. Yeah. How effective was it? And what type of marketing was it? Like, was it Facebook, Instagram ads? Did you invest in other types of channels?
Yeah, that's a great question. We ended up using a PR company, but not for the campaign. I think we may have had more success if we were using the PR company throughout the campaign. Mm-hmm. But I mean, we may have had more success with the PR company, with PR if we were doing it throughout the campaign, because there's a lot more to talk about during the campaign. But throughout the campaign, most of the marketing budget was on Instagram ads and Facebook ads, and a little bit of Google, getting people to come to find the video of the pitch and then send them to our, from there, hopefully the call to action is for them to get to the platform. There's a bunch of different ways to do this. You can work with a marketer, which we did for a minute and then decided to just do it on our own because it's relatively straightforward to use Facebook Business Manager. I'll refer you to like Ari Herstand has a great course on that. Ari's Take, if you guys are familiar with it. He has an Instagram course, I think, now as well. And in his book, which I have on that shelf over there, he also talks a lot about how to use these platforms. But I mean, you can budget, I think, as little as $5 a day on Instagram and Facebook ads. I think that's the minimum that Facebook allows you to do. But I think to like have an effective campaign, I think you can probably budget something, between $15 to $30 a day for the duration of your campaign. You can turn that on and off, right? It doesn't have to be the whole month. But that's a very powerful tool to have people seeing you in your story and swipe up and do things like keep that fresh.
And again, push everything towards one platform, website. Yeah. Keep everything in one place.
I think if I could leave you guys with anything, it's like these 7 things, right? And I wrote it down. It's like for a successful campaign, you want, all the successful campaigns that I've looked at and researched, and the one that I've experienced, it's, you have to have a solid idea. Your music has to be great. And you have to have like a vision. You have to be able to communicate that. The number 2 would be careful planning. So planning is key. You want to have a strong, number 3 is you want to have a strong presentation. So like engaging video, HD photos, clear product offering. And then that brings us to number 4, which is a reward structure that appeals to your project and to your audience. So, we talked about the different types of rewards that people can get for investing in your music. It's not just the album. It's, physical products, it's lessons, it's free shows, house concerts, all of that fun stuff and more. I encourage you to go look at other people's campaigns to see what they're offering. It's some people have some really creative stuff. Number 5 would be, ongoing outreach to backers. We talked about that, keeping them in the loop, giving them a return on their investment. Number 6 is effective social media. We just talked about, marketing, PR, which boils down to, the scheduling of all of that, the storytelling, the ad budget, and, again, check out Andrew's webinar. And number 7 is, the presence of either a popular band or a personality that's attached to your project. Or, number 7, I would split it into 2, an existing engaged audience. And again, research, plan, be the campaign, we're all in this together, all or nothing. This is going to take me to the next phase of my career. Don't beg. Don't be shy. You got this.
Nice. So nice summary.
Yeah.
For all this, like very, very complicated. I think today, like everyone's used to getting these 7 tips for a very, very complicated idea.
Yeah.
But I think like you've really went down, drilled down into the important parts of what creates this. Can you please share the link? Yes, I was just about to do that. There you go. So I just shared the link of Andrew's webinar. Feel free to take a look. It's about planning and building your PR strategy. You're welcome. So yeah, Amishar, my man, thank you very much for this. Like really interesting. Yeah, interesting discussion. It didn't even feel like something that like you're teaching. It was like very, very interesting. We hope it was also interesting for you guys. Again, there will be a replay at the end. You can replay this. We'll also add this to our YouTube channel and to our Facebook channel. Follow us on IndieFlow.me. And thank you all for joining. Amishar, again, thank you so much for your time and dedication. I'm sure whoever works with you will, like from the dedication we saw in the last week from you, I'm sure also the Portnoy Brothers experienced this, and also whoever will work with you in the future will also experience it. So thank you for the professionalism and your time. And
great. Thanks for having me.
Yes. All right, everyone. Have a good night. Good day.
Good day.
Wait, last thing, Houston Morgan.
I'd love to connect with everyone here and hopefully make new friends. If you want to connect, reach out on Instagram. We'll do.
Nice. We will do that. Amazing.
Perfect. All right, guys. Take care.
Till next time. Bye-bye.